Luxury isn't just an accessory. Darling gets a declaration. And if you're sitting there thinking that it's superficial, that it's indulgent, that it's only reserved for the elite few, I want you to pause, because what I'm about to show you will change the way you perceive desire, value, and love entirely. Imagine walking into a room where every detail, every subtle fragrance in the air, every whisper of silk against skin, every faint glint of gold reflects not just opulence, but your standard, your energy, your invisible authority. That is the first truth about luxury as a love language. It's not about the price tag. It's about the curation of your life, the deliberate selection of experiences, people, and moments that resonate with the frequency of who you are. I remember my first real awakening to this. A private dinner in a penthouse overlooking the city lights. The kind of skyline that makes every man who dares to sit across from you suddenly aware of how small they feel. How ordinary their bravado is compared to the effortless grace of someone who knows her worth. And yet, it wasn't about the champagne, the designer dress, or the exquisite cuisine. It was about the energy I brought into that space. The unspoken rule that I do not settle for less than a life that mirrors my standards, my rhythm, my expectations. Men, especially masculine men, accustomed to command and control, feel this energy in their bones before they can articulate it. They sense it in the micro-expressions, in the way you pause before speaking, in the way you glide across a room, as if every space bends to accommodate your presence, not your demands. And let me tell you, I've watched it happen in boardrooms, in private yachts, in art galleries, in luxury cars parked under the glow of city lights, where men suddenly adjust their posture, soften their tone, and ask questions they never thought to ask, simply because they recognize the unshakable certainty of your presence. Luxury as a love language is not entitlement. It is self-respect articulated through aesthetics, choices, and emotional economy. It is the philosophy that how you allow yourself to be treated is directly proportional to how you treat yourself. And in that philosophy, there is power, undeniable power, because when you stop allowing mediocrity to define your worth, the world, including masculine energy, has no choice but to recalibrate. So I want you to imagine your life as a gallery. Every person, every experience, every environment you allow in is a piece on display. Are they enhancing your story, your energy, or diluting it? This is the first masterclass in luxury. The recognition that your energy is precious, scarce, magnetic, and that the way you express it through taste, elegance, presence is your ultimate language of love. One that commands attention, respect, and devotion without ever uttering a word. And if you're with me, subscribe, turn on notifications, and prepare yourself, because we're about to unpack the layers of how luxury, desire, and power intersect in a way that will leave you unstoppable. Now let's dive deeper, because luxury as a love language is more than material elegance. It is psychological mastery, a philosophy of alignment that draws in the right energy and repels the wrong. I want you to visualize it. A man accustomed to being the prize, the decider, the one women try to impress, suddenly leaning in note because he is forced, but because your presence orchestrates attention like a symphony. I've seen this repeatedly. A private gallery showing, the faint aroma of perfume mingling with the warm notes of fresh espresso. Men in tailored suits and crisp shirts suddenly speaking softer, slower, and with a vulnerability that isn't taught but instinctive. This is the subtle dominance that luxury allows. Not dominance born of control, but influence born of calibration, of presence, of absolute clarity about what you will and will not accept in your life. Luxury as a love language teaches you that scarcity is magnetic. Your time, your attention, your affection are not infinite, and men unconsciously measure your energy against their worthiness. Do they rise to meet it, or do they crumble? I remember a dinner with a man who could move markets with a single conversation, yet when I chose not to chase, not to over-explain, not to dilute my energy to accommodate his ego. Something shifted. He began seeking my reaction, explaining himself, leaning forward, softening in ways he hadn't anticipated. And this is where the psychological hack lies. When you communicate that your energy, your standards, your love, and yes, your luxury are non-negotiable. Masculine men instinctively recognize alignment or exposure, attraction or repulsion, and both outcomes are information. Every choice you make in the curation of your life, every design of your experiences, your wardrobe, your surroundings, your conversations, these are not superficial. They are high-value signals, transmitting your sovereignty, your inner wealth, your emotional and psychological alignment with abundance. And let me be very clear. Luxury is not about proving yourself to anyone. It is about establishing your boundaries and then embellishing them with beauty, elegance, and deliberate presence so that when someone steps into your world, they immediately understand the currency you bring. Philosophically, this is the art of polarizing energy. Psychologically, it is secure attachment embodied. Relationally, it is the difference between fleeting infatuation and deep, lasting desire. So when you are considering the spaces you inhabit, the men you allow in, the experiences you indulge in, ask yourself, does this amplify my energy or dilute it? Does it challenge me to rise or does it anchor me in mediocrity? And once you begin curating your life with that level of conscious precision, everything changes. Men, opportunities, relationships, even your own self-perception recalibrate. You stop settling because settling is a distraction from abundance. You stop over-explaining because clarity is magnetic. You stop chasing because presence pulls what is aligned to you effortlessly. And if you're still with me, take a moment, comment your biggest takeaway below. Because anchoring insight is the secret to turning philosophy into lived reality. And subscribe and turn on notifications. Because mastery is a practice. And this is only the beginning of your immersion into the queen standard of luxury. Finally, the third dimension, the most seductive, the most empowering, is understanding that luxury as a love language is ultimately about self-mastery. It is about cultivating an inner life so rich, so anchored in your pleasure, standards, and sovereignty, that external validation becomes optional and attraction becomes inevitable. I've had men who wield empires, who are used to dominance, suddenly kneel before the subtle architecture of my energy, not because I demanded it, but because I inhabit a rhythm, a frequency, a standard that cannot be negotiated. I remember walking through a private art auction, heels clicking against marble, and feeling the invisible currents bend. Men pausing mid-step, glances following, subtle admiration in their eyes. The luxury isn't in the material, it is in the deliberate cultivation of an aura that speaks louder than words. That communicates, I am complete, I am sovereign, I am desirable because I am whole, because I respect myself, because I curate every moment and every element of my life to reflect the energy I deserve to receive. This is the ultimate mastery of attraction. When your presence, your environment, your elegance, your choices, your silence, your laughter, your gaze, all harmonize into one magnetic symphony. Men cannot help but respond. And here's the truth. Some will rise, some will retreat. Both outcomes are feedback. Both outcomes are valuable. You will no longer settle for mediocre attention, shallow flattery, or conditional affection. You will no longer dilute your energy, soften your brilliance, or negotiate your worth for temporary comfort. Luxury as a love language teaches that attention, desire, and devotion are proportional to the standards you embody and communicate effortlessly, consistently, unapologetically. And when you internalize this, you begin to live unapologetically. Every environment becomes your stage. Every interaction, a reflection of your curated life. And every relationship, a mirror for your sovereignty. So I want you to carry this into every aspect of your life. Your morning rituals, your wardrobe, your conversations, your friendships, your romantic connections. Comment I needed this if you feel the shift. Subscribe if you haven't already. And turn on notifications. Because the mastery of luxury, presence, and feminine power is a journey. And from this moment forward, you will never settle, you will never dilute, and you will always command the energy, attention, and admiration that your life, your standards, and your essence deserve. Walk back into your life knowing that luxury is not just a love language, it is your declaration, your manifesto, your queen standard, and the world will adjust, bend, and rise in response to your energy, not because you ask, but because you are undeniable, unstoppable, and entirely sovereign in your brilliance.